Hey team, in this video we will learn about the fuckit stack, coined by none other than the king of JavaScript on YouTube himself, Firestorage. So after watching his video, it got me curious on why it is his favorite stack, and let me tell you, the fuckit stack is absolute fire. But before I begin, I decided to split this video into two parts. So part 1 we will focus on just the UI, while part 2 will take you through the practical implementation of Firebase and Svelte. The reason being that I understand that not everyone is interested in the UI and it also tends to get a bit long. Therefore, to ensure you get exactly what you need, I have split it in this format. Alright then, let's get started. Let me demonstrate how this application works. So I hit sign in, you get this pop-up. I'll click one of the accounts. It should redirect me to the main page here. And here you can create event, or you can see the list of events. This is the list of events, and if I go back and create an event, let me create an event. So let's say test event Lauren Gypsum is fine, and I'll give it a date. I'll say and I'll browse. Just hit this one for now. I give a designation test and I create. Now that created this event for me. I could also click this and join this event. So now I can join again. I'll say test. I'll say test. I'll say CS. I'll just set some random things and I register for that event, and you can see there's one member now. If I hit here, I am a member of this now. So this is what we'll be building. I can also log out. So this is the application we'll be building. Hope you guys derive some value. Welcome to the second part of this Sveltekit video series. So in this video we'll be delving in the features of Sveltekit. So in the last video we built this UI together, and in this video we'll be looking at the implementations and the features of Sveltekit. So if you're directly coming to this video, let me explain what is going on. So I created this project with npm create svelte at latest, and we selected skeleton project, and we got a very bare bones project. None of these routes existed. We just had this file here called pluspage.svelte, and this is where in this we had a text saying welcome to Sveltekit so-and-so. So what we did was we built this UI. So let me explain how the routing system works. If you are familiar with Next.js, it works in a similar way. Anything under the routes folder, if we create a folder with the name, and under that if we have a plus page.svelte, it creates that page for us. So let me demonstrate the create page for you now. So if I go to create, you have the create page here, and this is just the UI. There's no JavaScript, just HTML. So this is how it works. You create a folder with the name of the route which you want and create a file called plus page.svelte. And if you go down here, this is another file which we created called plus layout.svelte. You can think of this as from where our page loads from, so the layout.svelte. So if you want to have a different kind of layout, you could mention it here. And you can see here slot basically is children. All the routes under this goes to slot. So you can see here we've imported a component called navbar, which is this right here. So in all the pages, navbar will be available. If I go to main page, event list page, create page, you'll have navbar. So that is basically what we did in the last video. So in this, now let me go further. Now let's start building the functions for this now. As you can see, this sign in button doesn't do anything. Neither does all these buttons, these inputs don't track any values. So let me show you how it's done in Sveltekit. So to start off, let's go to Firebase console here. We'll create a new project called event management YT. This will create a project for us. We'll disable Google Analytics and we'll create a new project. So now the project is ready. Let me hit continue. Let me expand this. So this is our project. We are using web. Let me give it a name. So event management. Don't mind the spelling, it's fine. Register app. Next we'll need to install Firebase. So let's go here, create a new instance of terminal. I'll install npm install Firebase. So till that is done, let me copy out this right here. Go here, under lib file we can create a new Firebase file, firebase.ts, and this is under asset. Let me put it under lib. Yep, let me just paste in all the values here. Yeah, that's fine. I can continue. Now before moving on, let's go here, create a new file called .env. In here, let me paste all the environment variables. So what I did was, for each of these, for example, API key, I prefixed with wheat because that is how you do it in a wheat project, wheat underscore API underscore key, and I gave it this value. Same thing was done for auth domain, project ID, storage bucket, and messaging sender ID and app ID. So now we can replace this. Let me replace this now. So get environment variables in wheat is import.meta.env wheat underscore API underscore key. Now let me save everything here and let us click on authentication, as we'll be needing authentication in our project. Get started. We'll be using Google as the provider. We'll enable here. We'll give it that email ID and let's just hit save. So now you can see we have Google provider with us. We can go to build. We'll be needing Firebase firestore database. Let us now create this database. We'll create it in test mode next, and I'll leave it as the default. So our firestore database is set up. Now we can go to storage, as we'll be uploading the pictures of guests. So I'll hit get started, start in test mode, next, and yeah, I'll leave that the default settings. Alright, so while this is being loaded, we can configure our Firebase file here. So in here, in order for Firebase to work appropriately in Sveltekit, you'll have to make some changes here. So Firebase app, I give it a type definition, and in here we check whether there is any apps. Then we take the length of it. So if there is no apps currently, we initialize Firebase, else we can get the apps and take the first element, first app, and then we can delete that. So after deleting, we can reinitialize it. So Firebase app, initialize Firebase config. So if you don't do this, you might come across some errors. So let's now, to avoid that, we'll have to do this. Now let us bring in all those database, authentication, storage, and Google provider from Firebase. So let me import all of these. So instead of this, I'll just bring in all of that. So let me save that. So with this, our Firebase configuration is done. Now we can create another folder called store. I'll explain what this is. And inside this we'll have a file called store.ts. Now in this file, let me bring in all the inputs and let me create a constant called auth store, and this will be writable, and inside that we'll have an object called user, which initially is none. So this basically, auth store is basically a way to handle states in our Sveltekit project. So not state exactly, but we can change this user object anyway from the routes, so without hierarchy being the issue. So I can go to main and change the user in here, or I could be in join and I could change the store's value in here. So that's basically store.ts. It's kind of like a context in how it is in React. So let me give it some type as well. So user will be of type user, which will be coming from Firebase, and it will be null. So I'm getting still an error. That's probably because this should be in a curly brace. Yeah, so that's basically store. So next up is we'll create another object called auth handlers, and inside this we'll have two functions. So log out, this will be an async function, and we'll await auth.signout, and we can also use inbuilt function of Svelte called goto. This will push the user to this root page. So in the root page we have the authentication here, this authenticate component. So if the user logs out, he'll be pushed to this page right here. Now we could just copy this and paste it here and change this to login with Google, and instead of auth.signout, I could just say sign in with pop-up, give it auth and Google provider, and once the user signs in, he'll be redirected to the main page. So with that, our store config is done. Let me close all of this out and let me head over to navbar. So if I go back here, okay, I think our storage, we got some error. Let me start this in test mode. Let that get created. Till then, as you can see in our navbar here, and now if I click my sign in with Google button, it doesn't work because we haven't configured it. So let's configure our sign in with Google button. So let's go to, this is probably in page under authenticate, and we can just, now let me import auth handlers from store. If you remember, we have two functions, log out and log in with Google. So if the user hits this, we need to call in that function. So to do that, you have to what you have to do is press on : click. That's how it works in Sveltekit. We go to auth handlers and log in with Google. That's all we need. Let me save that. Now if I click this, I get that pop-up. Yeah. So now before actually signing in, let's change this as well to the appropriate credentials. So let's go to navbar here, and in here let me bring in some imports, and now we can access the current user from our store. So I'll initialize a current user variable, current user, and then also give it a type, so user, and this will be null, user or null. Now in order to access that from our auth store, what you do is auth store dot subscribe. So you have a couple of functions here, which is set, subscribe, update. Set is used to set the value, subscribe is used to listen to the value, like listen to the change in the object, and update is used to update the object or the value. So we'll be using subscribe, we'll be listening to it, we'll give it a value here, and in here we can assign current user to value dot user. Now I can go here, if I close this out and close this as well, I can change this to current user dot photo URL, and I can do the same thing for here, current user dot display name. We can do the same thing here, current user dot display name, current user dot email. Save. You can see there's nothing here. So what we can do is we can conditionally render this out. So if, how you do that is hash if. Now this might come across as a bit weird, because if you're coming from React, but this is, you'll get used to it. So if current user exists, only then we'll be rendering this out, and I can close that block here. So if, now you won't see that anymore. So if I go back to layout.tsx here, I can do the same in here. In here, let me bring in the inputs which we'll be using, and again in here I'll subscribe to auth store and listen to whether there is a user or not, and I'll conditionally render out the navbar. So to do that, again hash if, only if current user is true, we will be rendering out navbar. If I save this now, you won't see the navbar in here. Now we'll also be listening to the on auth state change. So to do that, we'll use an on mount function, which is given to us by Sveltekit. So when the component first mounts, this function will be rendered out, and this we are doing it in the plus layout.svelte, as this is kind of like the root from where all the project is initialized. In here I'll create a const called unsubscribe. From the auth, I'll access the on auth state change. So this listens to the change in the authentication async. This will be, we'll have a user here, and inside that we can check if there is a user, and if there is no user, we can go to auth store dot update, and inside that we can return the user as null. Now this is for if the user is not there, but if the user is there, we can copy this out and paste it right here. We can update it to the user from here. So this will update the user. So when the component first mounts, it will check, and based on that it will assign the user. So after that we can return unsubscribe and save everything here. Now let's, okay, yeah, before that let me go back to store.ts. Yeah, that's also done. Okay. So let me try it out now. I sign in with Google. I click one of those and it pushes me to this page, and you can see it being rendered out my credentials here. And if I hit logout, it should push me back to, okay, this is not yet configured. We can do that now. So let's go to navbar. Here we can implement that on click auth handlers dot log out. Save that. I'll expand this now. I'll hit log out. I'm logged out. So now again sign in with Google, and I click one of these profiles and pushes me here. Now let's create an event. Let's create the functionality for actually creating this event. Okay, this doesn't work as of now. Let's configure that. So this is our main page. If I go here to our main page, again we'll have to give it a on click here, and it will be a callback function. Go to from app navigations to this is create, so let's go to create, and we can do the same thing for list of events. Paste this here, event list. I save that. Let's try now. It goes to create, this goes to event list. So both of that also is done. We could alternatively click this as well. This also goes to the same page. Now let's create the functionality for this now. Create the event. So let's go there. Let's go to create. In here under script, let me bring in all the imports, and let me also create some variables with the let, event name, event description, event date. So now, as of now, we are not tracking the values entered by the user in these inputs as of now. So in order to track how you do that in Sveltekit is, you have an attribute called bind value, and you give it event name. This is the one. Okay, I misspelled that. Event name. So this is the way you track in Sveltekit. It's very simple. It's unlike React. You don't have to give it the event.target.value. It's just this. Now let me show you how this works. So let me go to the button here and create a function called on click. We create a function called, let's say, create event, and we can go on top. It's giving an error. Let me create the function create event, and this doesn't take any params, and let me console log out the event name. Save that. Let me open my DevTools. Let's go to console. Let me show you now. I'll just hit ASDF register event, and we are tracking that value. Again, ASDF, we are tracking the value. So that's how you do it in Sveltekit. So let me do the same thing for the others now. Okay, so I've binded all those values. Let me now console log everything. So to show you what is happening, you'll see that I made a mistake here soon, because as you can see here, guest photo is a file type. If I go here, this is a file type, and this is not how you track files in Sveltekit. Let me refresh this and show you. And I registered the event. So we have you can see undefined. Let me show one more. As you can see, this cannot be sent to Firebase like so. So in order to get the file, we'll have to create a function for this. So let's do that now. So on top of create event, let me create a function called handle file input change. This is just JavaScript. This is how you get the file from this input file type. So if I go back to guest photo, okay, this is on change handle file input change. We give it the function, not this guest photo here. So now we have access to that. So let me try that again. Okay, let me refresh it, save everything. It's fine. I can leave this out. Day 39. You can see we have the file now and all this date and all that. So now we can move on with the Firebase part. So instead of console logging it out, let me create the function. So first we check whether it's undefined. If it is undefined, we return an alert saying field cannot be empty, and we if this is not the case, we say loading is equal to true for the loading state. Next we create an object called event info, and with event name, event description, and you can see the current user's display name, current user's photo URL, current user's email, and an array called members, which is empty at the moment. And you can see we are getting an error here because this function does not exist yet, because in Firebase, if I go here, okay, my storage is done, you cannot you cannot upload file format in guest photos. So we have to change the guest photo, the file type here to a valid URL. So in order to do that, what we can do is, let us create a function, async function, we'll call it upload guest photo, and this will be an async function. So in order to get the URL, we'll be utilizing the storage of Firebase. So first we check whether this exists. If it doesn't, we return null. Else we'll have a try catch block, and inside the try block we can create a storage ref, and we can use the ref function of Firebase. We can call the storage. So storage is basically, if I go on top here, storage comes from Firebase in the lib folder, which is right here, this one. Go here, this one, storage, we are accessing that. And if you've noticed, we are using $lib. So if to access the lib folder, we can just say $lib/Firebase. It's very easy. They make it very easy for us. So we access the storage. Next we'll mention the path. So guest underscore photos, and I'll give slash as well. Give guest photo dot name. So that's the storage ref. Now we await a function called upload bytes, which is given to us by Firebase storage ref. And if you need a video on Firebase, let me know. I'll bring it to you guys, no problem. So upload bytes, and this is all basically Firebase stuff. Download URL. So we'll create a constant called download URL, and this will be getting from get download URL, which is again from database, Firebase, and we give it the storage ref. So we refer to that storage, and it has a function called get download URL. This returns us the URL of this file right here, guest photo. So once that's done, we can return download URL. Now let me console log out. So we are console logging it out here. We are getting an error. That is because I think we have to async function, and now we can move on to the creating the event. So in order to create event, again we'll have a try catch block, and under the try catch block we'll create a constant called event ref. We'll refer to the document db. Again, this is from lib Firebase file. We'll create a collection called events, and under events we'll have a document called event name, so that we have a reference now. Then we can set the document event ref, and we can give the object which is event info. Then we can also merge it. Again, this is some Firebase stuff here. We'll just merge it. So if this is successful, we'll push the user to the event list page, and if there's an error, we can just so if all of this is successful, we'll say loading is equal to false, and we can go down here, and we can also give disabled if loading is true, and we can also conditionally say change the text of the button. So if loading is true, saying registering, else I'll just cut this out and paste it right here. Save that. If I go back here, I think that is all for our creating an event. Let me save everything. Let me cut this out. If I go here, if I refresh it, I still have everything. Now let me go to network, reload it. Okay, now let me create an event test description. I'll give it a date, I'll give it name test guest, I'll give a file certificate open, I'll give guest designation, and I'll say register for the event. Okay, I think yeah, there was an error while creating an event for set doc call with environment. Okay, so it appears that we are getting an error. Let us fix that. Okay, so once I've console logged out, I'm seeing that we are getting some undefined values here. So that means our current user, we are not changing it, it's just null. So in order to change that, so now what we are doing is we are listening to that auth store, and based on that we are assigning the current user with the user in our store. So now that should get rid of all the errors for us. Let me again and also hit for event. Okay, so that is now created that event for us. You cannot see here because we're not pulling the information, but if I go to Firebase here, this is Cloud Firestore, I'll refresh it, and you can see we have a collection of events here with the test event, the name of the event, and all the info right here. And if I go to storage, we have guest photos folder, and this is because the first time when we hit the register event, it actually uploaded the file for us, but it didn't update the Firebase Firestore database. But now so don't mind all this. I'll just delete this out. Yeah, so we have our architect.png which I uploaded, and if I go to Firestore database again, you can see the URL of that right here. So this will be the URL. So we have created the functionality for creating an event. Now let us grab all that information here. So in order to do that, let me go to event list folder here, and let's start creating that. In here, let me bring all the inputs, and I am getting an error because the types, we need types for this. So let us create the types.d.ts. So these are the types which we'll be using: t events and members. just pasted it here not to save time. So now this should go. Import type that will automatically be imported for us. So let me create a events, a variable which is t events, and this will be an array. I'll initialize it as an empty array. So in here we can create a query now. So const q query will access the collection which will be coming from database, from our Firebase file, and we'll say events. So events collection. Then we'll unsubscribe. I'll say on snapshot, and we get q. Give it the query. We give it the query snapshot. Query snapshot. This will have a callback function, and query snapshot dot for each will access each of the documents. So doc, again this will be a callback function, and in here we'll say events dot push will push each of those doc data. So doc dot data, and we're getting an error. I'll just give it the type t events, and that should get rid of the errors. Now because we're using Sveltekit, we'll have to reassign the array just because how Sveltekit works. This is very Sveltekit specific. I can't remember why the reason is. I think it was because when you're using functions like push, you're supposed to do this just because of, I'll put that on the screen, the exact reason why you have to do this. You could also additionally just use the spread operator. So you could do something like this doc data, and we can just say events. You could do this as well, but let us keep it simple and do this way. And if you're doing it this way, you don't have to reassign. You don't have to do this. You just can, it can just be like so and it'll work. But if you're using this event.push, you'll have to reassign it. So let me reassign it, and that should take care of everything. Let me now console log out the events so that you can see what we're getting. I'll hit save. I'll go here, open DevTools, go back to console, and you can see we are getting an array of an object which has everything here. Okay, cool. Next, what we can do is here we can actually loop over those events and render each card out now. So to do that, you have to create an hash each events as event. And when you're using Sveltekit, you'll also have to give it a key. So event.name. So if you are coming from React, you give it a key with an ID. So here, since we don't have an ID, I'm just giving it a name, and this should be an event name. Event name, and I can also close that block out now. I'll render this out, and now to give event card some props, you could do this like so. Name, say event name, but this is a bit verbose, so Sveltekit makes it easy. What you can do is just spread the props out. So events, and if you do this, event card will have access to all the values inside the event. So event name, event description, all will be given to event card. Now it's giving me an error because here we haven't actually defined it. So let's define it now. Let me bring in the imports here, and Now let me render this out and show you what we're getting. So then get all this, and so this source bring event dot this is host photo and so host email, so host email, so the guest photo, so guest name, designation, that's fine, and numbers dot length. Now let me save everything and restart, refresh it. We're getting an error. Let me check what that is. Type out CTX8 is undefined. Okay, I'm getting an error. If I go back here, TypeScript is screaming at me, and if I hover here, okay, I can see I'm destructuring the array here, but what I have to destructure is the event. So I'll just hit that. So with that, TypeScript stops complaining and refresh it, and now I'm getting the event card here. So basically that's how you get the date. So now you can we're not rendering out the date, formatted date, because the date format, if I go back here, you can see the format is 2023-06-08. I don't want that format, so we'll create a helper function. So under source, let's create a folder called helper, and inside that let us create a new file called format date.ps. So in here, this is just some simple JavaScript to get the format in day, month, year format. So that's how you get it. So here what I can do is I can create formatted date, and I'll call that function format date, which returns my desired date by giving event date. Now I can just, instead of here, I can just say format date. That should, I'm getting an error. Let me check what that is. Cannot find helpers. Okay, why is that? And see, okay, I don't know why that is, but we are getting what we want here. It's screaming for some reason. I guess my PC is slowing down. Anyway, that's how we get each of those dates. Okay, let me just, this is bothering me actually. Close that, open that again. I'll just, yeah, fine. Okay, so that error is, I've just ignored that TypeScript error. So yeah, so that's how you get those event list. And now when the user clicks this, I want the user to be redirected to that page. So it should be join / this event name. So if you see here, we have a folder called join. It has a slug, and we have a page.swell. So let me show what we're getting right now. If I go join and hit 1, we get this page. If I hit 5, this is the page. So that's basically how we create dynamic routes in Svelte. Give a join in brackets, square brackets, slug, and we create a plus page.svelte. So we want the user to be redirected to that page. So what we can do is, in the events page, event list page here, let's go to event card, and under article we can say on click, we can give a callback function and say go to, very straightforward. I'll give it a dynamic template literal join, and we can give the event name, name, and you can see I'm getting all these squiggly lines, because whenever you're using on click on an tag which is not a button, you get this. So to get rid of that, what you have to do is on key down. If I hit that and just give just an empty callback function, that gets rid of all the errors. Now if I hit save, if I hit this button, it takes me to that this page right here, which is test event, and right now this is rendering nothing out because we haven't configured this. So let's do that now. Go to join here, and let's start building this out. So let's server side render out the data here for this page. So in order to do that, what you have to do is create a new file called plus page.server.ts, and if I go to their docs here, Sveltekit server, if you go here, you can get you can read up on their doc to see what exactly this page does. So this is how we create server-side rendering in Svelte, and you need to give it a export const load function. This is important, and you give it the function which is required for like accessing the data from the backend. So we'll be doing that now. So in here again, this is the same thing. If I go here, it's a load function, async params, and I've imported all the things which we require. You can just say doc ref. We can refer to the document, so doc, I'll give it we need the db events params. So instead of params.id, it will be params.slug. So next up, we'll take the doc snap. We get the document. So we get the document of test event. If I go here, we need this. We have access to this data now inside doc snap. Now, but we need that in the form of data. So docsnap.data gives us these data. Now we can also check if event exists. If it does, then we return event as the event. Else we throw an error of 404 which is not found. So this is basically, with just this we can now access the data. So now to access the data here, what you have to do is, let us import first the type which will be required. So that will be page data, which will be coming from dollar types. So this is the types which they give us. Then all you have to do is say export let data and say page data. Now let me console log out the data. I hit save. I open DevTools. You can see now we are getting the data for this document. So that's basically it. Now we can render this out to our components. So let's render it out now. So basically I send it some props, date, data dot, if I say data dot event date, that's what we're doing for date, name, description, and same thing for guest info. So let's go to event info. So the way you do that is use export let date string, and I've imported some things which will be required here, and you can see let me comment this out. Okay, now the error is gone. You can see. Now let us bring it here. Again, let me create a new constant called formatted date. I'll call that function again, so that I get the date in my desired format. So format date, name, and description. I'll save that. Now this should change. Undefined. All right. Okay, let me save everything. I didn't save everything. Fine. Test event description. So we are getting. I did not save this. That's why it was giving me an error. So with that, event info is done. Now next is guest info. So go to this component here. Let me bring in the inputs and those values. So to get those, guest name, export let guest name. I save that, and all the errors here is gone. Now I can just bring it here now. So instead of all this. Now let me save this. You can see that we are rendering this out now, and here, as this is an array, we cannot render the array here, so we'll have to loop over it. So let's do that now. So let's give it an if condition. So we'll conditionally render it out. So if recent members dot length is equal to 0, that means there are no members yet, so we don't actually need the curly braces, p tag, and say no members yet. Else we can do something else. So else we'll render this out. We'll render this out, and we'll close the if condition. And here, as that is an array, we can render it out. So hash each recent members as member, and we'll also have to give it a key. So member dot member name. Okay, so now we can close this by saying each, and then we can say source. I can change the image tag to something like this, and this one will be in curly braces. So if you want to see, this picture is basically this. So if there is no image, this will be rendered out instead. Okay, so as there are no members yet, we are getting no members yet. Okay, that's basically it for the join page. Next, we can add the feature for actually registering a member and pushing the member to that array. So if the user hits register, this members should be updated. So let's do that now. Go here. So let's go to, that should be in, let me close everything out because it's getting confusing. Page.svelte, and I think it should be in event info here. So here we'll create it now. So in here, let me create some variables to track the input values. And before I forget, I'll also subscribe to authstore to keep track of the user. So current user will be value. It should, here inside this there should be a value dot user. I don't want to make the same mistake which I did last time. Okay, now let's track those. Track these inputs. So if you remember, it's bind value, and you give it let variable event here. I'll do the same thing for the others now. So now I'm tracking all those values. Now let us create a on click for this. On click, and let's say register event. This one will throw me an error because that doesn't exist yet. So let's create that function now. Register event. It won't take any params nor a type, and we can start building our function up. I'll give it a check. I'll check whether event here is undefined or member industry is undefined, else I'll return this alert saying the inputs are empty. Then in here, let me create an object called member info. So we are getting the event here, all this, and we're also getting the current user, so the current user who's signed in, their display name and the photo URL. So once that's done, we can set loading to true, and we can have a try catch block now. Inside here we'll await, and we will be using a function from Firebase called update doc. Now we'll have to create a reference for it, so let me create it outside here. So const event ref, that will be doc, again db, which will be coming from our Firebase. We'll be accessing the events collection and the event, the name. Let me give it the event ref here. Should stop the error. Okay, and that's because async, this should be an async function. Okay, yeah, I'll have to, let me first show you what we are accessing. So db, database, events collection, and the name, which will be test event, which is coming from here. Yeah, here, data.event name, so individual event. So in this case it's test event. That's what we are accessing and giving it here. So now we can update it. So inside that will be an object. Inside the object we'll access the members. So members, make sure that's spelled correctly. And to update an array, we use something called array union from Firebase, and we say member info. So that basically adds it, and if this is successful, we can push the user to the event list page, and if there is an error, I can also console log out something. Now whatever happens, we'll also set the loading state to false. Okay, now make sure I disable the button if loading is true, and I'll also conditionally render out to change the text when the button is loading. So if it's true, I'll say registering. If not, I can just place this here.
Okay, I found this on the web for history if not.
Okay, that scared me. And with that, I think everything's done. You can see I've been getting an error here. That's probably because of this line. Save that. Okay, so everything is done. Now let's try whether what we've done up until this point is correct or not. Let me go to network and let's try this out now. So I'll just give test LinkedIn, IT sector, an email. The title is CS. What are you hoping to win? Sveltekit, and I hit register for this event. Okay, so it pushed me back to this event list page. You can see the members is 1 now. If I go back here, if I open this now, so now we can see this is being our members array is updated. So yeah, so I guess with that we have completed our application. Everything seems to be working correctly. Now let's try everything. So I'll go to the main page, create event. Let me create an event now. Business master class. Oops. Learn business. I give it a date. 8 guest. Say Charlie Munger. Browse. Should have his picture here. Let's give investor. I hit register for this event. Should probably change this E, and you can see the guest's photo. There are no members yet. Event date is being rendered out correctly. You can also be a member of, so you wouldn't want to host and be the member yourself, but okay, we'll do one thing. I'll log out, sign in. I'll sign in with a different account. Sign in with a different account. Okay, now let us go to list of events. Go here and I'll say Now register for this event. Registering members 1. If I go here, it's being rendered out here now, the member, which is me right here. Okay, so with that we have completed our project, have learned how Sveltekit works, and yeah, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.